Let's go again. Hi, I'm Lena Morielli Scott. I am on faculty at the University of Maryland in our College of Education. I'm very proud to be one of the founding members of the Maryland Civic Education Coalition. And I'm very, very proud to be joined with all of you in this room today to talk about what's going well and what we can do a little bit better if we put our good heads together in our experiences. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this roundtable discussion. Just a reminder that we're recording this session. So if you prefer not to be on camera, you're welcome to click on your stop video button. If you need a little help knowing how to do that or anything that's tech related, feel free to, wave your hand saying that you need some help, or to send a note in the chat if you know how to do that. While we are getting started, we would love it if everybody in this space would introduce themselves using the chat. We'd really love to know your name, your school, your organization, and the county where you live or work. So please feel free to drop that into the chat if you know how to do that. So once again, we're dropping into the chat a little bit about who's in the room with us, build a little bit of community here. We'd love to know your name, your school, your organization, and the county where you live or work. While you do that, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the session plan. So we're going to have some introductions, and I'm going to take just a moment to give an overview of the terms so we're all hopefully speaking some of the same language. I'll pause for a moment to share some definitions of civic education, civic engagement. What does co-curricular or extracurricular mean? And what am I thinking about when I refer to civic spaces? And then we'll get into our roundtable discussions. And in those, we'll hear from our panels about what they know is working and what's worth celebrating, the activities that they're involved in, what they think could be better, what barriers we could remove to make sure that everyone has access to meaningful, impactful, and equitable opportunities for youth engagement. We'll give everyone in the room a chance to ask questions of our panelists, and then we'll have time in a breakout session in breakout rooms where you get to share your expertise and your own experiences. We've got some note takers and facilitators to help with that. And then we'll come back together and debrief what y'all talked about in those breakout rooms. So that's sort of a general overview. If you're just joining us, we're asking everyone to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know your name, your school, and your organization, and also the county where you live. So I would like to sort of focus our attention now to who's in the room. I'm taking a look at the chat, and I'm really excited to see a lot of friends that I know and some new people who are going to be a part of my community now. It's lovely to meet you all. I would like for us to think about using our little cards again, maybe get a little snaps. So let's hear it for the teachers in the room. If you're a teacher in the room, you can wave your hand so we know you're here. All right. Thank you, teachers. And now let's hear it for the students who are in the room. If you are here, make yourselves known, students. Thank you so much. Giving up a Saturday, teachers and students. I really commend you and I appreciate you doing that. It's been a tough year and it's been a rewarding year. And I hope that this is part of what makes you realize how much people appreciate you. If you are a civic partner or a member of our community and you are here to support youth empowerment, let's hear it for you. Snaps to you and show us who you are. Okay, I'm going to mention who our panelists are. And then from there, we're going to actually not go into deep introductions at that point. We'll have better, stronger introductions in a moment, but I just wanted to at least give you a sense of who is here. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Lena Morielli Scott. I work in the College of Education at the University of Maryland. We also have with us Max and Patel, Michael, Samantha, and Iman. They are here as our guest experts for today. I want to take a moment to define civic education and to define civic engagement. And in fact, I may call on some of you in the room to help me do that. One thing that might surprise some people here is that there's actually a long-standing and cross-partisan agreement about what these terms mean, and even best practices for how to teach civics. So there's a couple of ways, if you want to know more about what the community of scholars and civic educators have been saying about these terms for a long time, I would encourage you to take a look for these links. So Educating for American Democracy, or Civics Now, or what social studies teachers call the C3 framework for college, career, civic life, and even the civic mission of schools. These are all reports and scholarship and working documents that many of us in the civic education community rely on to look for sort of cross-partisan understanding of what we're talking about for when we say civic education, civic engagement. So at this point, I actually want to see if there's anybody in the room who would like to take a moment to tell us, when I say civic education, what do you think of? Feel free to unmute yourself and I will call on you. What do you think of when I say civic education?
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
All right, one thing that I think of with civic education is, I guess, just in school, like class, learning about social studies and government and how it's like important to be a citizen and like participate in democracy.
Cool. Would anyone else like to share what do you think of when I say civic education? What do you think that means? Get ready, Marcy. I'm about to call on you. Go ahead.
Okay. Adding on to what Max said, I think it's the understanding of like the infrastructure behind our government, the way that our everyday decisions are made.
Excellent.
I think along with what the two previous speakers said, it's also helping students understand that they're part of that government, that they have the rights and responsibilities to act and to be involved. It's not, as we like to say in the League of Women Voters, government. It's not a spectator sport.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also is civic education. I always think of it in a more a larger perspective, both curricular and co-curricular programs, but I think it has to address civic content knowledge, which is in the realm of political science. And I'm going to say civic skills, being informed and voting. But I also think there's a huge part of civics is civic attitudes and perceptions and dispositions. I think that's a huge part of civics.
Thanks. So one of the things that I would like to really emphasize is part of what Marcy did too, and I would like to pick up on what Max and Iman and our colleague from the League of Women Voters said too. It's the knowledge and the skills and the beliefs to confidently engage in your civic life. And so it's crucial that we provide these opportunities. And I would suggest our nation's current crises, and there's so many of them, highlight the urgency of involving young people as problem solvers. So one of the things that I hear as a teacher often is, the youth are the future of our country. And that's true, but I don't feel like we can wait. Our youth are in it right now, helping us solve problems. And if we are not helping them get ready to do that, we've got more work to do. So effective, meaningful, and equitable civic education are really crucial steps to equipping students with the knowledge, skills, and beliefs to engage in their civic life. And, when Marcy and I talk about beliefs, we're not talking, and most civic educators are not talking about like a political ideology. We're talking about the belief that you can make a difference, that you have a part in this great community of ours, this great state of ours, this great democracy of ours. So it's something that, you know, some people would call agency. Do you have a belief that you are a part of it and you can help be a part of that solution? Just a couple, I'm guessing you all might have the same idea about what these terms mean. Extracurriculars, most of us know, are the things that happen after school or out of school or in our communities. Co-curricular may be a word that fewer people know, which is just, those are the things that, you know, partners with teachers, with students in schools. So they are part of the curriculum, but they may be something that's sort of special, or a special activity that teachers and students can sort of opt in. And when I talk about civic spaces, what I'm talking about are the things that are in schools, in communities, in our homes, in our places of worship, all around us are civic spaces. And so I don't think that it's the job of schools alone, or it's the job of our families alone, or it's the job of our community partners alone to be helping prepare and empower young people, but these are all civic spaces that we share. Do you have any questions before we begin? We move into our discussion with our panelists. Okay. Let's hear from our guests. So you can see their bios, their complete bios on our website. And in a moment, I'm going to sort of go in an order, and I'll show the order on the screen in a second. But panelists, what we'd like, just as a reminder, what we'd like for you to do is to tell us if you're a teacher or a club sponsor or a civic partner, and then tell us a little bit about your activity. What is it? What do you do in it? What do you love about it? What do you teach, or what do you learn? So that's really what we'd like to hear. And I'd like to start, if we would please, with Batel. We're so happy that you're here, and we'd love to hear from you. I think I'm going to stop my share screen, and I'll just call on folks, and that way we'll have a bigger view. But just Michael, you're on deck.
Okay, thank you so much, Lena. My name is Batel. I work for Liberty's Promise. Specifically, I work at Prince George's County in 2 high schools. So what Liberty's Promise does is we work with immigrant youth aged 15 to 21, and we focus on 3 components in our after-school programs. We focus on college prep, career prep, and obviously civic engagement. So what we do is we, most of our youth are newcomers, and they're not really aware about the processes of, like, you know, how things work generally in their community. So we try to engage them in their communities by first just teaching them about American government, and just kind of like small political science stuff that you would local, state, and federal government. But then we would also bring in local speakers. So we would have county council members or the city council members come in and speak to our youth. We would take them to town hall meetings, public hearings, to just give them a chance to express some of the concerns they have about their communities, some of the things that affect their day-to-day lives. And we also do a lot of service learning hours with going out into the community, taking them to Washington, D.C., looking at the monuments. And these are things that they would never be able to do and without this program. And most of the students are like, oh, I've never been to DC, and they just live, really close to it. And so they, so pretty much what we do is just kind of making sure that our immigrant youth feel at home, and then they are also being prepared to become active citizens in our communities. Thank you so much.
And Patel, do you want to let folks know that about your personal experience?
Yes. So actually, I moved here from Ethiopia when I was about 11. And so middle school was a bit hard of a transition. But then in high school, I found Liberty's Promise. So I went to Kennedy High School, and I was able to be part of this program. I got my first internship through that. I I canvassed for local candidates, and I was very much involved in my community through Liberty's Promise. And so after college, it was the first place I looked for a job. So that's my background on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Patel. And Liberty's Promise is a member of our coalition as an organization, and we're so pleased to include them in today's conversation and all of the work that we do. Michael, you are an educator and you work with one of the premier civic education, long-standing civic education programs called We the People. I would really love it, and I think our audience would really love to hear a little bit about yourself and the program and why it is such an amazing experience for your students and maybe for yourself too.
Oh, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Mike Colatrulio. I'm a teacher in Charles County at St. Charles High School in Southern Maryland. I've been a teacher since 2009 in that particular school. I had the amazing opportunity to be a part of the James Madison Legacy Project, which was a grant that the State Department had to send teachers like myself to James Madison's home in Montpelier in Virginia and spend almost a full week there learning about the We the People, the Citizens and the Constitution program, which has really changed my career and has impacted hundreds of students' lives for the better. It's a program that allows students to take civic education to the next level and compete. And it sounds scary, and we're going to go over a lot of the details today about it, but it's actually something that's so empowering. I learn from students. I learn so much from them when they compete in this. I have so many positive stories to share about students who've gone through the program and what it's done for them. One of the most memorable was a student of mine. Her name was Ryan. She competed with me for several years and became a coach after she competed in her first competition. And she wrote me a letter on the day of her graduation saying, because of We the People and because of all the people that she's come in contact with, it's now her dream to go to law school and become a Supreme Court justice someday. So I've saved that letter. It's been very, very special to me. So We the People holds a very dear place in my heart, and I look forward to talking about it today.
Thank you, Mike. Samantha, you're a teacher too, and I think you may have Peru behind you. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
this was from before the pandemic. I had visited. I took this picture actually. So this was my background all throughout Zoom school last year.
Yeah. And Zoom school. We could have a whole summit just about that. So Samantha, tell us a little bit about the amazing program that you are really involved in, which is called Project Citizen. And I would be remiss if I didn't make a link here. Both of those programs are offered by the Center for Civic Education, one of the premier and leading and longstanding leaders of civic education in our country. And Marcy Taylor Thoma is involved with both of them. All right, so Samantha, tell us a little bit about Project Citizen.
Yeah, so Project Citizen is really taking all the skills that we've been talking about today, civic engagement, civic beliefs, and putting them actually into action. So part of Project Citizen is students learn about the public policy process, and then they actually apply it to a policy problem. So students as a class, and that's what's the unique aspect of that, is that it really is a class project. Students, and my students just started this last Thursday, actually, looking at different problems they see in their community and looking at what policies can we change to actually make a difference in our community. And so students through that process, not only do they research different perspectives on potential policies, but then kind of like with the We the People, there's a small competition aspect to it where students create a class portfolio, and then they're expected to present that portfolio in front of a panel of judges. And the judges will look at their engagement, how they've been able to engage their community, whether it's local politicians, their local school administration. And the whole goal is for students to actually feel empowered to actually make a difference and actually to change policies that they want to see. Oftentimes students pick very local issues, either stuff at their school or in their local community, but we've seen examples of students doing this for their state even. It just depends on, again, it's the students. It's all student directed. So I look forward to discussing more about it with you guys.
And we look forward to hearing more. All right, Max, tell us a little bit about teen courts, which some people may know a little bit about, but I'm guessing a lot of people don't. They're also known as youth courts. Sometimes they're called peer courts. And it is a program that I've been involved with in my prior life when I worked at Street Law. But it's an amazing experience. And would love for you to tell us a little bit about your experience in Baltimore.
All right. So my name is Max Abubakar, and I'm a junior at Towson High School. And I do some extracurricular activities, but the main thing I'm here to talk about is Teen Court. And this is a program, at least the one I'm in, it's offered through My Law, Maryland Youth and the Law. And it is, I believe, the person that hosts it for me is Miss Shalane Bell, really an amazing leader. And what we do in Teen Court is it's a program that offers rehabilitative justice to teenagers who committed crimes in Baltimore City. So if a teenager commits a minor crime, usually they can be a little more than minor, but nothing super major, they can get referred by the police to the teen court. And what we do, we're a group of teenagers. Well, there's obviously lots of adults, but the people that are asking questions are called the jury, and we're teenagers. And we basically ask these respondents who are accused of committing the crime what happened, ask them to tell us about their life, what they need, why they decided to do it, what they can change, and things along that line. And then after this conversation, we decide what they need. We can sentence them to things like community service, writing essays, and we can also like attach them, link them to mentors, to drug testing, to anger management, and other programs that could really help them. And I think it's a really great way just to, I guess, as a teenager to help other teenagers in the community that are coming from different situations, but it brings us all together.
Thank you. And Max is also involved in mock trials and in track, and later on in our conversation, you would certainly be welcome, Max, to talk about those things as well and how they have helped shape your thinking about being a member of our big community in Maryland and the world. Iman, I think you guessed it, you're next. Tell us a little bit about, you're involved in a ton of activities too. If you could focus a little bit, what I would really love is if you'd focus a little bit on some of your STEM activities or Amnesty International, which we haven't heard yet about. And then again, later we can hear about all kinds of things that you do and how it has shaped you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Iman. I'm a sophomore at South River High School in Anne Arundel County. Like Lena mentioned, I am like in a lot of activities. I'd owe that to my very short attention span, and I tend to get drawn into, like as soon as I get even a little bit of interest in anything, I'll just commit to it, which will often end up badly because I'll overcommit. But so far, I've survived. So I am in the STEM magnet program, which if you're not familiar with, is basically the normal high school curriculum, but it'll have more requirements on the science and math aspect of it. So we'll have like biology, physics, and chemistry, like all conjoined in the first 2 years. So we're introduced to it earlier on. My approach to getting involved in extracurriculars has always been, for one, as soon as you have even a little bit of interest in it, just get involved. Even if you don't think you're prepared, it'll end up having like really like a lot of benefits. And if you're like trying to figure out which ones, I say like go far and then go deeper. So like, for example, with STEM, I'm involved in like environmental engineers, which is like a club where we get to like start initiatives that like have more sustainable impacts throughout our school, which connects to my green technologies pathway in the STEM magnet program. And that's like the deeper aspect of it, where I connect it to my like education and like possibly like where I want to go with my career. And then the far aspect of it is that I'm in like National Art Honor Society and Amnesty, which is a human rights nonprofit grassroots organization. So those are like just hobbies of mine that I just think like you need to have that go outside of like maybe what you're studying, just so you can have like that full, well-rounded experience.
Thank you, Iman. I'd like to open it to the whole panel, and I'm just going to ask a couple of general questions. So I think we're all here because we're believers, but what would we tell folks who didn't know about these programs or many of the other programs that are represented in this room? I mean, there are a lot of people in this room who are doing great, amazing things, and I'd love to have all of you on the panel if we had more time. But so why do these programs matter? What do you think young people learn from them? And why does that matter to the rest of us?
I can start off. I think that specifically for immigrant youth, which is what Liberty's Promise organization works with, civics education and civic engagement is often overlooked in that population, and so a lot of the times people are just focusing on just getting them through high school, getting them to college, and helping them with maybe some things here and there. But I think that what we fail to forget is that a lot of times our immigrant youth are the ones who go back to their own communities and tell their families, and then tell their cousins, and then tell the rest of the community, because they're very, very close-knit community. And so it's a wider effect. So our youth are really like spokespersons for their own community. So I think these programs and getting even just small information that they can share with the rest of the community, it's just invaluable. And I think that's just really important. And then you see a lot of people coming out to volunteer, a lot of people making changes in their own, in their towns, in their cities. And that is all because of the youth who were able to gain the information that they were able to gain from programs like this. So.
Michael and Samantha, you may get paid like a few cents an hour to do the work that you do for these extra programs. I guess I will confess, I used to be a mock trial coach in my high school when I was teaching there, and I calculated, I think it was like 17 cents an hour I got for sponsoring. But why do you do it? Why do you think it makes an impact? Why is it important?
I'll go ahead. When I decided to take Marcy up on her offer to attend James Madison Legacy Project, our school system really didn't have the infrastructure for We the People yet. So it was all like a volunteer basis, and it was just something that I was interested in. When your first slide came up, how you define civic education, I think that term's really like polarizing. For people in this room, it's really exciting and meaningful. But for a lot of kids, when they see it on their schedule, it's actually like fearful and they dread it. So something like We the People really is a way to take a government class on their schedule and make it meaningful and make it fun. And it was worth every hour that was spent. Those first few years, there was a lot of investment. And I admit I did not do it on my own. Dr. Toma was on the phone with me all the time. I would text her and call her all hours of the night. She was probably so annoyed to see me calling and texting because I was in a constant need of her help. And I also have a wonderful colleague that I work with, Miss Haley Ressler, who's not here today, but she's been just rock solid support as well. So every hour that was put in was well worth it, and establishing it. And at this point now, it's just kind of become an institution, and kids know coming into high school that We the People is something they're interested in. We're starting to see siblings interested in it, and people just know about it, and it's something that's just, it's built itself. So I don't want to say it runs itself after a while, but it is certainly easier 3, 4, and 5 years down the road. So that initial investment will pay off.
And I think for me, especially last year was my first year doing Project Citizen. And most of my school year, I'm in Montgomery County. We were virtual for pretty much 3/4 of the year. And one of the aspects that I loved about Project Citizen is because even though students were behind the screen, they could actually still participate and engage in civic discourse. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to continue to do it. But obviously because Marcy told me to. And she's very persuasive. And I think what we really see that the students benefit because they actually get the knowledge to apply what they learn in school to real life situations. And I think that was what the key for me was, and why I love programs like We the People and Project Citizen, is because it really is about empowering the youth to understand exactly how to get things done in our government structure, and how to get policies, what makes people tick, and then how can you work with that? How can you have a real discourse and a civic discourse, not what we see sometimes at the national level, but how can we actually engage people to change things that we see around us, and to get kids prepared for what they're going to have to do in the real world, right? If you're going to want to change something at your workplace, well, you're going to have to understand different perspectives, and in your community as well, right? If you see local issues in your neighborhood, how are you going to get your community involved in fixing those, right? There's a lot of different aspects, and Project Citizen allows students to get a feel for what that is, and to actually hopefully make that difference by actually doing it.
I have another set of questions. So again, you know, many of us are believers already, but I know many of us are also concerned that there aren't really equitable opportunities. You know, we really would love for, you know, students, regardless of their zip code and regardless of their resources, to be able to be involved in programs like these. So I'm just curious, maybe we'll start with the young folks this time. What do you think it would take to get more people involved in programs like these, and what barriers could we all try to think about removing so it'd be possible for more people to participate?
Okay, I can go first. In my experience, teachers have been instrumental in my involvement with activities. Having, like, for example, one teacher that was like my social studies teacher telling me about mock trial was really what got me interested in it, where like I'd never seen a future in it before. And I think that like that's where, and this came up in like the earlier roundtable as well, there's like a lot of disparity in like the interests that teachers have, or what teachers are involved in. And I think that if we have maybe more, I'm not sure if like development would be the right way to put it, but like more opportunities, I guess, for teachers to like learn about where students can get involved, I think that would be like really helpful in like closing that opportunity gap.
So I think that, and the question was how to get people of like all backgrounds more involved in civic education.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, well, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, but one thing I can say is, one thing that's actually surprised me is that when you're working with these kids in teen court, the respondents, a lot of times they're not the people that you would expect would be very into like civic education. There's actually a part of the program where one of the sentencing is to make them go back as jurors. And sometimes you see like it's about 50-50, but sometimes they're very like into it, into participating. And sometimes like these kids, which came in as something they definitely didn't want to do, something they were forced to do. And it goes from them wanting to participate and even like joining the program when they're not forced to do it anymore. So I think to me, that's just an example of how people from everywhere have interest in it. It's just something you have to spark. And I think that, I guess it's up to teachers, it's up to communities to spark that interest.
Yeah. Max, that's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say, in the sense that, like, with my experience working with youth courts, there are a lot of people who start off because they're told they have to, but they realize the power of that experience of, you know, being a part of restorative justice programs that really make a difference for for themselves and for their peers. And so that power of creating a positive community experience is something that youth courts do, but it's also something that a lot of these other programs do, that if you just get into it a little bit and you see what a great experience it is. And then it makes connections, you know, you're connecting with people who you may not have had, you know, a lot in common with before, but maybe you have more in common than you realized. So I wanted to say thanks for that. Do any of the other panelists have something they'd like to say on that question? We're getting ready to move into our Q&A for the rest of the group.
I just wanted to mention one thing that I've noticed in my programs is that a lot of parents aren't aware of the importance of programs like this. And so having a small a small session, maybe involving parents, maybe educating parents about the importance of their youth attending these programs will help a lot. I know a lot of my youth come into my programs and they're like, can you write a letter for my mom? Like, she doesn't believe that this is helpful or this is going to help me with college or anything. And so I have to like call parents and explain to them, why this is helpful in their careers, why this is helpful in their future, why is this helpful for their self-development. And so I think that is really important as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I'd like to add to that too. We can't assume that people above us at the county levels and the instructional levels understand the value of this either. So anyone who's an educator or a student or a parent who's in this room who would like to implement any of these programs or something similar in their own schools, I'd highly encourage you to just look at the data out there. I can only speak for we the people, but I'm sure Project Citizen and all these other wonderful programs here, there's hard evidence that links to student achievement and college acceptance and college scholarships and future careers and potential earnings and careers. So educating these people, and don't be afraid to ask your content specialists. I know for we the people, there's a lot of money involved when you start to get into the higher levels, and when you start to compete and you start competing at the state level and the national level, there's a huge barrier involved in money, and just educating the people above you and keeping them in the loop and understanding why it's important and keeping them aware of the info can really help, because you'd be surprised when people learn about this, they're very willing and receptive to start giving out and helping.
And I would just add on, there just needs to be the time and the investment in the teachers. And I think Mike had mentioned it earlier, a lot of teachers get overwhelmed, especially when they're starting to take on a program, because they feel like it's all on them. And it doesn't have to be, especially like if a colleague that you know or coworker, you're both entering at the same time, maybe you don't have a ton of experience, but going through that process together, you can help each other. And as always, you can always rely on the other teachers in your state who have done it before, because there's definitely people who have been trained on this, and they are civic educators are more than willing to help one another. You can just email any one of us and we'd be glad to share all our resources. And I did promise that I would share professional development opportunities for Project Citizen this summer. So if you're a Maryland educator and you're interested in pursuing Project Citizen, we have a wonderful professional development opportunity this summer.
Thank you, Samantha. All right. I'm not actually going to ask the panelists to answer this aloud for the sake of time, but I'm going to ask everybody in the room to answer the question that's on the prompt in front of you and use the chat feature, if you will. The prompt says, if you could tell a decision maker one thing about supporting civic-based extracurricular, co-curricular activities, schools or in the community, what would you say? I bet you want to know who a decision maker is. Maybe it's a school leader. Maybe it's a policymaker. Maybe it's a funder. Maybe it's a principal. Whoever you decide, what would you tell them about supporting civic education programs like the ones we've been hearing about? I see your comment, Amy. Start young. Jessica, I see your comment. It doesn't have to be boring. Absolutely. In fact, I think everybody who's been speaking so far has been saying it's usually not. With the right supports and programs in place. All right, we're going to move now to our Q&A section. So if you are in the room and we have a question, and meaning that if you're a participant here but not on the panel, feel free to raise your hand this way, or raise your hand this way, or raise your hand using the buttons in the bottom of your Zoom space. I will do my best to watch for that. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen for a moment so we can get. Oh, I guess I never started it, did I? Okay. I will. Jessica, you're laughing at me again. I will ask you, I will look for people who have a hand up or a hand up, and if you've got something for a specific panelist, let us know. Otherwise, we'll open it to the group. All right, so I see Eliza's hand.
Thank you. So my question is, there's also a lot of apathy and disillusion among adults. And people sometimes ask us, how can our civic learning programs, which reach young students, reach whole families? And we do invite parents to student performances. And during COVID, we've created virtual student performances, but we haven't really created any kind of program that in some way trickles lessons up. And I'm interested in thoughts on how that might be accomplished on a practical level.
So one of the things that I have done, like Mike, I've done We the People, and for judges, I actually ask parents to come in and judge, especially if they, I have a parent who is, I think she's like a CEO of an interest group. And so especially those parents who are civic minded, you can definitely reach them, but I definitely recommend you got to, especially if you do something like We the People or Project Citizen, invite the parents to judge, to be part of that process. That way they feel connected to the actual steps. I know with Project Citizen, we encourage our students as they are researching their policy problems to see what expertise they have in their community. Ask their neighbors, friends, their parents, information about whatever their policy topic is, because we do have that expertise in the community. And I think that's how we can reach them, is when we start to ask the parents, and through our kids saying, hey, what do you see a need for, and how can we change that?
I think virtual learning has had its challenges, but it's also opened up amazing opportunities. We can network online, and we can use things like OneNote and Microsoft Teams and Google Drives and all of these other various platforms. And it's very easy to involve parents now compared to things being isolated in a classroom, where in the past your classroom was kind of an island. And unless kids were willing to share what was going on in the class with their parents, now that opportunity is ever present. So with We the People, there's a massive question that the students have, and they work on this one question. So parents can get involved and help, and you really get parents emailing the teachers now saying, hey, I know a lawyer who could help with this question, or I know a business person who can help with this question. So utilizing some of those tools that we're all familiar with now, thanks to virtual learning, may open some doors for you.
All right. JC, do you still have a question?
Didn't have a question, but if you don't mind, I wanted to add that with our league this year, what we're doing with the primaries and being so many, we're doing what's known kind of like a fact sheet, giving the history of the office. And then we're kind of bringing a survey or a feedback form to say, what would you like to see in this particular office and candidate? Before they start going to the forum. And we've kind of taken on that initiative to go through and kind of, like you say, teach the adults. So, and then bringing their kids in by way of the voter registration, trying to tie it all together. But one of the things we're finding that we need to educate the older population as well. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing it backdoor way, because we're planning on also doing one by the same token for the Board of Education. And that should spark a lot of, where you all are coming from too, as to what parents need in the curriculum. So we're taking the approach, let's educate the adults. Let's go back to educating the adults. And then, because we do have the young people, but because that middle group, they seem to be, have lost the knowledge of what really civics education is.
I am looking for hands. Does anyone else have another? Oh, I see a hand from Anthony and then Jessica.
Well, thank you to the panelists. It's so interesting to listen to student perspectives, because when we make decisions about this work, sometimes students aren't included. And so I'm just so happy the coalition makes a point of making sure you're at the table. But I think there's a perception in K-12 institutions sometimes that we kind of compartmentalize civics or social studies or community engagement work. And I'd be interested to hear more from the students on the panel about how this work that you do, these experiences you've had, kind of translates into other areas of your lives, whether it's, you have a lot of time, I know, to talk about, to think about careers and college, or, whatever it is you want to do. But how does this engagement affect other aspects of your life?
I think that personally, my engagement, it obviously gives you lots of skills and valuable experiences. Like, for example, just skills in talking with people, dealing with people, sympathizing with people. It gives you perspective. Like, you get to meet people you wouldn't otherwise get to see, and hear perspectives from people that maybe you would never see in the neighborhood you live in or the school you go to. And lastly, I think this is something that isn't to be understated, but it's also just it gives you a community. It's not even you're learning anything or experiencing anything. It's just you get to go and you get to help people, you get to talk to people. So I think all of those are important parts in my life.
Adding on, I think that whereas the more, I guess, usually regarded as core subjects of math or English might be used in our everyday lives in more basic ways, I think having engagement with civic education has more subliminal intertwining with our lives, with getting involved in social studies or mock trial. I get to understand how our everyday lives function beneath, and there's obviously learning leadership skills, communication skills. Those aren't things that you can easily obtain from science or math, but they are things you can get from student government, and those are so helpful as you develop and grow in your career as well.
Thank you. Jessica, what's your question?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the panelists. Your comments and your thoughts have just been wonderful to hear. I have a question for the two teachers on the panel. I'm actually going to be a first-year teacher next year, and I was wondering, where do you turn to find those extracurricular activities or programs that you can try to integrate into your classroom? Because personally, that's kind of the biggest barrier for me, is where do I look to find these different organizations and activities?
One of the things I would just say is look at the Center for Civic Education. That is definitely one of the bigger, more well-established organizations, and they will they give you contact information, and those people are more than willing to help you. And I know Dr. Toma is on our call today, so if you get her your email, she will definitely forward you applications for anything that you're interested, like Project Citizen or We the People. I also have found just keep making sure that you sign up for email big listservs of civic organizations. I know National History Day emails once a month. I know Street Law emails at least once a month. Stanford history group emails, I believe at least once a month as well. So just putting your email on those listservs can definitely help, and obviously read the newsletters because they will let you know like, hey, we have this upcoming opportunity, and you can sign up for what interests you. But congratulations on starting your education career. We're so excited.
Thank you.
So Jessica is a member of the Maryland Civic Education Coalition already as a pre-service teacher and is even a part of our membership working group. So she already knows this, but I'm going to tell the rest of the folks. If you're interested in learning more about really high quality organizations and the work that they do in schools and out of schools, I see 4-H is here, for example. There's, and of course, Liberty's Promise is a co-curricular and an extracurricular activity as well. Campus Compacts here. There are so many wonderful groups that are a part of our civic space. And so if you're considering looking for other groups or looking for resources, I hope that you will consider joining the coalition. Jessica, can you drop the coalition email? And you'll find out we have regular announcements about opportunities for young people, regular announcements for teachers, regular announcements for civic partners, where someone would say, like Eliza might say, hey, we've got a big event coming up, and everybody in the coalition gets to hear about it. So, and then, I just want to highlight too that Marcy's comment, there are a lot of great organizations for teachers locally and nationally. So there's the Maryland Civic Education Coalition, there's the Maryland Council for the Social Studies, there's the Middle States Council for the Social Studies, and National Council for, there's a lot of really wonderful groups if you're a pre-service teacher or a teacher that's maybe been in the profession for a while, but looking for a new spark. I would like to turn our attention now, and I think I will actually go ahead and share my screen to talk about what's coming next in our breakout rooms. So we're going to have breakout rooms next, and we're going to have, I said 2 rooms, but it looks like we're up to how many, Joe? 4?
4 rooms.
Okay, we're now going to have 4 rooms, and in all rooms, we'll have facilitators to help guide the conversation. And I think we're going to have note takers. We might need a little bit of help. You guys can work that out in the breakout spaces, but you're going to have about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I'll check in on you. And after that, we'll come back together and debrief what you talked about. So we've got some, facilitators ready to ask you some questions and to help sort of remind you of the discussion norms, making sure that we're moving the conversation forward productively and in communities. So do you have any questions before we get ready to move to our breakout spaces? Feel free to unmute yourself because I don't have a great view to see hands go up. All right, so I'm going to ask my techie friends to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms and move back. We will be back in this space in about 15 minutes.
Okay, I want to add the questions to the chat first so everyone has them. Jessica, I'm having trouble copying and pasting them in. Can you grab those? Are you able to?
Yes, I will. We have quite a few questions, so I'm going to break them up into 2 messages. The first one will be the first half of the questions. The second one will be the second half.
And the facilitators, you obviously don't need to ask all the questions. Just pick the ones that inspire your spirit or the folks in your room.
As soon as the questions are in the chat, we'll go ahead and send you out to the rooms, and we'll probably call you back around 12:40, but I'll let Lena make a call on that.
All right,
Okay,
questions are in the
looks like
chat. We are good to go.
All right, bye everybody.
We have assigned folks randomly so that they're sort of roughly the same size. If you are having any challenges about moving into a particular room, let us know and we're happy to help you get there.
Okay, Lynn, it looks like everyone but Sandy and George have moved, and they may have stepped away from their machines.
True that.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging around here because I'll be driving soon.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for letting us know, George.
Thank you.
And Sandy, are you here? I bet you're right. I bet he stepped away.
Sandy joined the roundtable just a few minutes ago, I believe. So,
Yep.
okay. It looks like,
So we're still
Jess-
recording, right, Joe?
yes, we are.
Okay.
It looks like Jessica is facilitating in room 1. And Michael is in room 2. Marcy is in, I'm sorry, Marcy is in room 2. Michael is in room 3. And see, Anthony is in room 4 facilitating.
Wonderful.
Yeah. They were, Michael and Anthony were very gracious when they accepted the invitation.
Thank you for doing that.
It's a great discussion.
Guess I can stop sharing my screen.
I'm going to jump into each room to make sure there are no tech issues.
Great, thank you.
All of the facilitators said everything was going okay. So
Wonderful. Joey, you're getting MVP in my book today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And let's see, the target endpoint was 1240. So, and I think with all those questions, there's plenty to keep generating the conversation. So I don't think we'll need to pull the plug early.
Good. I think we'll want to just be sure we've got enough time for a little bit of break, a little bit of report out,
Mhm.
and sort of conversation about what's next.
Well, if you want, we can end it early. I know you need to get back to the main room at 12:45. So
I do, but that's okay. I think we've got enough of a little bit of a break there. But thank you.
sure. This is an amazing program, just so you know.
Thanks.
May I ask a personal question? I know
Sure, as
we're
long as
close.
you remember we're recording.
Yes. My dissertation is about professional development, and I wanted to know if I could speak to you about school systems and what you know about them across the state. I
would
think
be-
I'm going to end up doing a case study. So
I would be happy to talk with you about it. Professional development is something that I feel really passionate about, and I have experience with both pre-service teachers. I'm actually Jessica's teacher,
awesome.
and also close to 20 years of working with in-service teachers. So I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
That'd be great. Thanks so much. This is quite a journey writing this document. Surprisingly, it's taken me quite a while just to refine my research questions so that I'm narrow enough in scope, that I'm not looking at the entire world, but still broad enough to have something to explore and, actually add to the body of knowledge. So,
Right.
But we won't go into that now. I just wanted to ask while we had a chance.
No, happy to. That sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Right. I think I want to send a little note to the breakouts to let them know we're going to wrap it up in about 4 minutes.
Okay. Are you familiar with that process?
I should be. And what was interesting to me is, give me a second. Oh, here. So what was it? Yeah, I'll just go ahead and do it.
Sure. Success.
Joe, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And it's still my slides, correct?
No, I see a document.
Okay, let me take that off.
Now I see a series of tabs.
All right, let me stop my share.
There we go.
Interesting.
Always safe.
Yeah. Huh. This must be an update in Zoom. Previously, it would stay on the tab that I was showing, or the window I was showing, even if I personally opened something else.
Right.
Okay. Good to know. Let me try this again. Do we have a thank you slide?
Yes, we do.
All right.
It's 12:38. Should we send the,
Yeah, let's go ahead and close them.
okay, we'll
What
give
did
them a 60-second warning.
Okay.
These students are really impressive.
Aren't they?
Yes. Is it Meklit that I saw earlier?
Meklit.
Meklit.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her if she would be willing to coach Jeannie and I with our youth council for the League of Women Voters, especially with the social media outreach, the best ways to do that.
She's awesome. And I don't know if you know this, but she's got a twin sister.
No.
And who is also awesome and also a member of our youth advisory council.
Super. Welcome back, everyone.
Thank you. Great discussion.
Good. Thanks for helping lead it.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
All right, as our friends return to the room. All right, everybody. I don't know if you designated someone from your group to report out. I hope you did. If you didn't, get ready for somebody to point at you. Valen told you. So we'd like to hear from each of the rooms to take about 60 seconds, maybe a little less, to tell us about a challenge that you've identified and something that you want to celebrate. So I'm going to be really ruthless on this time because I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to grab their lunch before we hear from the governor. So for room 1, could we have somebody to tell us a little bit about what you talked about?
Sure, I can go. So we really had a conversation looking at how to engage students and meet students where they are. So this might be through talking to parents and reaching out to parents, but also finding ways to make it interesting for kids to be engaged in civics. So we were talking about how do we reach out to elementary school students? How do we reach out to students who might be disengaged from the classroom for whatever reason? And just thinking of ways that we can really show kids that civics is fun and interesting and exciting to learn about.
Any barriers you want to mention that you haven't already? Things we could work on together?
I think the biggest thing that we talked about, and anyone else from the room can chime in if they want to, is just making it accessible. So especially for younger kids, we don't really see civics being spotlighted in the curriculum in that age group. So finding ways to make civics more accessible for that age group and for their parents so that we can prepare students to kind of grow and learn as they go through their earliest grades.
Mm-hmm. And we have some experts in this room, Amy among us, among others, who are really focused on civic education for younger students. Sorry, my alarm's going off. You did not go over time, Jessica. So I would like now to hear from room number 2, who's going to speak on your behalf.
Do you want me to go? I took notes, so I can go ahead. For our room, we talked about equitable, making civic education more equitable for communities that need it the most. And what we identified one barrier as is transportation. We've realized that a lot of schools, especially in the inner cities, or even just Prince George's County, which is very close to the capital, is they don't have after school buses. And so making those after school or extracurricular activities available to those students would really require us to address the transportation issue. We came up with some solutions about how we can teach students within our, taking field trips and showing them how the metro system works so that they're more comfortable in going around their communities. And then also kind of pushing for the local leaders to get more buses for students. And so that is what kind of we focused on. And then we also mentioned involving parents and civic education as well.
Thank you. Let's hear from room 3.
I can't remember if that was our room or not. I thought we were 4. I'm not sure.
You are 4. It was Alice, Mr. Anderson, Michael, and Iman.
Okay, sorry about that. I forgot what room we were. So I took notes for this. The biggest barrier we came up with was the budget. There's various budgets across the state. Some counties have access to transportation and funding, and others don't. So we talked about different ways to involve community partnerships and different kind of creative techniques. We talked about students and teachers wanting to do, but sometimes, teachers and students are all about the X's and O's of the classroom and really aren't great fundraisers or organizers. And sometimes we don't have all of the skills necessary to make all of the logistics behind the scenes happen. So just creating some synergy in the partnerships and how important that is. We also talked and highlighted some positive things. There's a lot of great things going on in Maryland with civic education and civic engagement. Students are empowered more than ever. They have opportunities now that never existed before. So we're seeing some really great things. There's just wonderful students in school who are doing great things and participating and taking on, speaking in front of legislators and just taking on so much. So students are ready more than ever. So it's up to us as the adults to just give them the space and a little bit of a push, but to really allow them to embrace that.
Excellent. All right, Anthony.
Sure, I can share a few things. We talked about waving our magic wands, and I think resources and will are 2 important things. And so we can always use more resources. We could always use, that means money, that means people, that means collaborative efforts. I think that Dr. Desmond also mentioned that we need to make sure we're reaching all students in an equitable way, and that not a select group of people are receiving service learning opportunities in our communities. And we also need ways to measure the impact of this work to finish that feedback loop, not counting volunteer hours, not counting people touched, but stories of impact and change to show our leaders and our policymakers that this is a really effective way of creating community change.
I like what you said, Anthony, about, stories that show the impact. And I think that we have several wonderful stories represented by the people who are in this room. And I think we just need to work together to really tell those stories and elevate those stories. And this summit is all about that. And this conversation is all about that. And there's a lot of work ahead of us that I hope that we can continue to talk about and collaborate on. I would like to say thank you to our panelists, Aman and Patel, Max, Michael, and Samantha. I'd also like to thank our volunteers, Jessica, Joe, and Marcy. And I'd like to thank everyone in this room for being a part of the conversation and all that you do to empower Maryland youth. I would like to encourage you again to consider joining the Maryland Civic Education Coalition. We've got more exciting events ahead of us. Snaps to all of you. I want to mention now, before we part, what's next? We're about to have a short break. You're welcome to go grab yourself a little bit of lunch and meet us back in the main room. So if you joined us early this morning, it's the same link, and we can drop it again into this chat. Connect back at about 12:55. You're welcome to eat your sandwich or your salad or your SpaghettiOs with all of us here. But we want to start right at 1 o'clock because we've got a wonderful message from our governor and some, excuse me, awards to announce of our Youth Service Award winners for the state, and then some closing remarks. So let me go ahead and drop in the chat some, go back to the same place that you used to log in and find these links, and you're just going to go to the main room. Okay, the main initial.
I have the link in the chat, Lena, so we're all set.
Perfect. All right. All right. Thank you all so very, very much. It was good to be in your company, and I look forward to joining in your company again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Scott.
Thank you. Max.
Yes, I am very busy today, so I'm gonna have to leave now, but I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It was like a really great experience.
Max, you are so welcome, and you made it a great experience. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about your speech and your award. And I wish that we had been able to do that. But let's continue let's stay connected, Max. I'd really like that.
All right, I think I could join. Like, how do you join this coalition? Like an email server or something?
I'm going to send you an email, and I'm going to tell you how to do it.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, bye for now.
Okay. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. Raina says hi.
Oh, please tell Raina that I miss her and I love her. And I'm so glad that she's able to work with you.
Yeah, no, she's doing amazing things at Northwest.
Yep, at a great school. At a great school. Yep.
Take care.
Take care. Okay, thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Joe. Thank you,
Of course.
Jessica.
Great morning. Wow. Great morning. Looking forward to this afternoon.
Me too. Me too. All right, I'm going to peel
See you
off.
soon.
I'll see you in a few minutes.
All right.
Mhm.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.